Starting with the feet together, hands atop the head, and starting with gentle hip circles, taking your time, making sure the circle is round. You're not jumping any parts of it. Hips rotating around the feet. Like there's a rope pulling you all the way around. As you get comfortable with the movement, you can increase the speed just a little, but try not to lose the quality of shape if you do. And 2 more. Very nice. Changing direction. Again, starting slowly. Feel how your body's doing. If things feel good, you can up the range of motion and eventually accelerate the speed. And 2 more. Good. Coming back to stable. Stepping out to the side. Fanning the body. Keeping the back straight, belly engaged. Rotate the pelvis back as the body fans forward. Pelvis up as the body fans back. Making sure you're moving from the hips. Keeping all of this nice and stable so you're lifting all that weight with your hip rotation. If this is too easy, you can move the hands to the chest center to add a bit more weight higher up. Still too easy, you can bring the hands behind the ears for, again, just a little bit more weight higher up in rotation. Try to keep the weight evenly distributed between the toes and the heel, so we're not lifting too far forward or back. Two more. Good. With the legs in the same arrangement, we're going to sink down, hands on the hips, sink down, turn, and look to the ceiling. As I look up, my high shoulder is pulled back. The same hip is pressed forward. Sinking down, slight bend in the knees, other side, shoulder back, hip slightly forward. Back straight.
It's same shoulder, one shoulder back. So when the shoulder is back on the same side that the hip is forward?
Right. So I'm not doing this. As I sink down, the hip is coming through a little bit. I'm twisting the spine a little as I draw the shoulder back. Turn, hip forward, shoulder back. One more. Last one. Good. Expanding the stance just a little. Body parallel with the ground. Belly drawn to the spine. Turn and look past the foot without running into a bookcase. Nice and slow. Turn and look. Those bookcases will get you. Slight bend to the knees. Once again, the weight is even between the toes and the heel. Two more. And now with the swoop, two more. Good. Narrowing that stance. Returning to standing. Feet slightly wider than shoulder width. Hand on the hips. Great big hip circles with the swoop. Big circle, and the body draws through. Making sure that we're never locking out the knee. Hips going all the way around the feet. And two more. Last one. Changing directions. Focusing on the circle. The hip swoosh is secondary. Two more. Good. Shake that out for a moment. You restart my timer. There it goes. All right. Bringing the attention to your right hip, working on external rotation. Nice slow circles. Drawing the weight around, back and in. Making sure the circle is nice and round and complete with the hips rotating in as well as out in that extra rotation arc. Once you're comfortable, grabbing the ground with the feet, drawing the belly, raising the head and neck. And switching legs. Starting with the shape. Once the shape feels good, then engaging the foot grab, belly draw, clavicle knitting, and head neck raising. Keeping the circles nice and smooth, drawing around and in, and then around in and into our figure eights. Arcing side to side, circle to circle. Making sure the shape is clean. Once the shape feels good, foot grab, belly draw, clavicle knitting, and the head neck raise fall. And relaxing back to the middle. Returning the attention to that first leg, internal rotation. Bookcase. Nice big arcs. Try to keep that rotation smooth and continuous. Adding in those alignment principles once the arc feels good. Paying special attention to the hip as it rolls around and back in. Again, and this time transitioning to the other leg for internal rotation. If you've done this so much that you're looking for a new challenge, start really playing with how each additional alignment principle changes the body feel of the movement. Play with how the foot grab changes the feeling, not just in the foot, but all the way up the leg, and what parts of the leg it affects in what part of the cycle. From there, start playing with how varying degrees of umbilical engagement changes the body feel through the quad, those inguinal grooves, through the belly, and makes movement accessible not only to the lower dantian, but also to the base of the ribs, right around that xiphoid process. And then finally, how that head and neck raise pulls everything up and through, creating that space around the heart so that tension doesn't get bottled up, but rather it can just stretch right through your body. And keep playing with that as we roll into our figure eight. Nice big arcs, rounding back to the center, breathing in, and relax. So in a couple moments here, we're going to start playing with ball rolling, Chung Bagua ball rolling. But before we do, I want to just go over a little bit of a compare and contrast between this and the pouch way rolling. So in pouch way, we have our young wolf digging. I'll go really slow, where the arms raise up and through, driving forward, and our reverse digging, where it's a more simplified scoop. Whereas in Bagua, we have that twisting, rolling of the forearms along with the rotation of the shoulders. Can anyone think of a reason why these two styles might be different in that regard? Just curiosity. Any ideas? So in pouchway, the strikes are largely explosive and medium to long range. There's not a lot of use for grabbing and heavily tactile movements with the palms, right? There's just It just doesn't really exist. It's just everything is out there, it's hit, it explodes, it's cannon fist, that's what it does. Whereas in Bagua, we're constantly drawing in to that middle close range. And in that middle close range, the angle of the forearm plays a tremendous role in how we can coordinate our body and create power that we can use for that mid-grappling range. Does that kind of make sense? And so in Bagua, we're always training that engaged role to be part of our grander structure, right? Whereas in Pouchway, from the shoulder exploding out to the cannonball that is the fist is sufficient, right? And so this does complicate Bagua somewhat because the coordination of two arms rolling like this is far, far easier than two arms rolling and also orbiting each other, okay? And so as we play with this, pay attention, we're going to go very slow in the beginning, to the fingertips and how, if I get angles, I'm going to see, how the hands relate to each other. I talk a lot about the relationship between Lao Gong and Lao Gong. Lao Gong, for those who aren't acupuncturists, is the acupoint right in the palm of the hand. And there are 2 points in every cycle where Lao Gong is lining up, but the rest of the time it's palm to dorsum of the hand and then somewhere in transition. Now, Lao Gong, even though it's a focal point, doesn't have to be lined up to be engaged. I'm drawing around, I'm still pulling that feeling of my palm around the other hand. The palmar aspect is still the tactile surface all the way through. So even if the palms aren't lined up, I'm still reaching with my palm. I'm still feeling with the palm. Does that make sense? Is that, yeah? Cool, okay. So now as we go to our practice, let me get a timer set. We're gonna start out nice and slow. Don't worry about the depth of your stance for right now. Don't worry about the figure eights yet. We're just gonna play with that roll. Okay, so you can have your feet square if you want. You can have one leg forward, either way is fine. What I wanna play with as I'm rolling is that feeling that I'm wrapping that space between the hands around the hands. And notice how there's not, at the speed, a high degree of fluctuation in terms of the diameter of my circle, right? It's a pretty consistent circle rounding through as I coil and wrap not just the shoulders, but the forearms. And so play with this nice and slow, paying attention to that palmar aspect of the hands, that Lao Gong acupoint, as we wrap around, drawing through. Take your time. Again, focusing on the extremities first. We're gonna bring the attention to the middle in just a moment here. So take your time, which is that wrapping action first. Good consistent space between the hands. A nice slow roll is easier to feel than a fast roll. I'm choosing to scoop forward and up because I find that I have more control rolling this way than the other way. If you have the opposite experience, it's fine to roll forward as well. So now maintaining that focus on the rolling of the arms. Let's bring our attention to the feet. And the feet gently engage. And it's not so much of an engagement that you're tensing your foot. It's just enough engagement there for it's acting like a suction cup, gently pulling to the ground. From there, we draw the belly in. And once that belly comes into play, I begin that kind of concave aesthetic to my front. And once I have that, I can begin to feel this roll as more than just a shoulder motion. It begins to become a movement that has some belly feel. And even though my focus is on the alignment of the hands, I want to maintain that belly feel throughout. The belly feel goes, I've lost my legs. If I've lost my legs, I'm only using half my body. And no longer working towards full body motion, which is again why that belly feel is just so, so important in all the work we do. From there, I want to make sure the arms are the cleanest conduit they can. So I make sure the clavicles, these long bones here, are gently knit together, which makes the scapula, the flat bones there, splay out and around just a little bit. As that happens, I feel the weight of my shoulders more pronounced. If my shoulders are here square, there's not a lot of weight to them. Being supported pretty handily by my torso. As I create that concavity, all of a sudden I become more responsible for the weight of my shoulders. which turns them into more of a tool, into more of a mobile space. And then lastly, my head neck raises up, just so things don't get stuck anywhere in the middle, and in particular around the heart, which we really don't want to do. And keep playing with that roll for a couple moments here. Taking your time, smooth cycles, stretched fingers, making sure the circle isn't just limited to the space here in the end, that your whole torso is to some degree that circle. As you press through, you feel your belly. As you raise up, you feel that lift projecting from your ribs. The whole body is part of this movement. And if you can only feel that while going slowly, then slowly is the pace you should probably go. If you can maintain that body feel as you accelerate, then you can go as fast as you like. Master Ni was just zipping along with this when I was training with him, but he's been training for 1 billion years. And so as you start off, make sure that you always have that feeling of connection to your core. No matter how fast you go, things have to line up and come back to that middle. Otherwise, it's just fancy arm movement. Right? That's the defining point of what makes it full body motion and a building block towards greater Kung Fu. Good. Changing the lead leg. If you have a lead leg, if not, don't worry about it. And begin rolling in the other direction. I think side views was easier to see. In the beginning, move not with trepidation, right? But with a subtlety to the motion. Take your time. Feel that space between the hands as consistent. Feel the shape that your shoulders have to take to maintain that consistent space between the hands. The rotation rate is constant. We're going slow enough that I can really focus on that. If I'm going so fast I can't maintain a constant rotation, I'm going to want to slow down to make sure that my arms have that quality to them. And just as before, as I roll forward, I'm going to make real sure that the palms rolling around each other is the focus until that feels natural and almost tedious. Right? Once this action is so consistent that I can just look up at all of you and not even worry about it, then I'm ready to add on something else. And as always, we begin with the feet. That very slight foot grab to give structure to our legs. From there, that very slight abdominal engagements that now as I roll through, this movement in the arms is ever so slightly echoed in my core. Once I can begin to feel my abs moving and shifting with the movement in my arms and forearms, my upper arms and forearms, then I'm ready to bring on the clavicles, right? And again, it's that very slight knitting, that very slight convexing of the backs. The shoulders don't relax from the neutral to the side. They have that weight to them. And so now my body is responsible for carrying that weight. And as I add this weight in, the shape of the circle can really easily get twisted. And so it's necessary to slow down even more because now this weight is going to play a role in the movement. And it needs to. It's part of the process. And so I adjust for how the weight of the shoulders shifts my rotation. I bring everything once again into a nice, calm focus. Once here, I can raise that head neck, give my body suspension. And now I begin to feel the belly roll and shift in a more significant way as I extend and draw through. And I want to maintain that feeling if I choose to increase the rate of rotation. If I go fast, any part of that goes away, right? I lose one shoulder, I lose a bit of my belly. I'm going to instantly slow back down and try to feel that part again. And I'll accelerate a little more slowly next time, trying to maintain that feel. I'll hang out there until it feels stable and consistent, and then I might consider going faster again. But again, if I lose it at all, I'm going to drop right back down a gear and make sure it comes back. Keep playing with this for a moment. Very nice. Nice, even circles, good pacing, April. Very clean, Galen. Play, all of you, this is for all of you, with different diameter circles. See how smaller circles, bigger circles change and shift your body movement. Again, this kind of stuff has to be an experiment, right? And you always have to recognize that what feels good today, what's most appropriate today, might not, and in fact, probably won't be what's best for tomorrow's practice. And so we're always sort of fishing for that best place to work in. As our bodies develop, as we have injuries, if we're tired or have better sleep, everything shifts mildly. And it's important to be aware of that. Good, very nice. Okay, relax for a second. Now we're going to add in some hip rotation with this for just a couple minutes. We're almost done with this one. Take a leg, any leg, it becomes our forward leg. And I'm going to start by rolling back. As I do, I'm going to find that roll in my arms, that constant rotation. I'm going to run through my checklist of foot grab, belly draw, concaving the chest, bringing the shoulders into play and raising the head and neck. And now I have my very stable, very consistent circle, focusing on that rolling of the palms and the belly feel that accompanies it. Now, once this is all feeling good, I begin to slowly add in an external figure eight. And notice how everything slows down as I bring that figure eight in, because I want to be real aware of any kind of loss of feeling of this movement in my stomach, in my shoulders, or in my hips. If I start going fast, I'm just playing with that movement, and also my belly is just kind of quiet, and my shoulders kind of going along for the ride, I'm not getting as much out of this as I could for my time. I want to make sure that as I roll, that figure eight, rather than detracting from that body feel, is increasing it, making it more pronounced. And if I choose to accelerate, I want to make very sure that acceleration isn't losing anything for the speed. And every so often, even if I think I'm doing everything right, I'm going to slow down and just listen. And look for any discrepancies between my fast movement and my slower, more controlled movement. If there is one, I'm going to really focus on that as I speed up again, trying to make sure that it doesn't leave me as I go to that greater pace. And changing sides, still rolling back. Again, if I try to jump into it, I might get flustered. I don't want that. So I'm going to start with that roll. Find that body feel. Find those postural elements that really bring out that best of the body feel. And then slowly bring in that external rotation in conjunction with those clean movements. Good. Everyone play with that for a few minutes. Or moments rather, not minutes. Okay, everyone, we've gone back. We're going to change directions now, so we're also going to switch legs. And now for that roll forward or back, whatever was opposite for you. Again, as I start out, I make sure the shape is clean. I make sure that my postural elements are all of them online. Foot grab, belly draw, chest concaved, head neck lift. And then from there, now going into, if you're going forward, internal rotation, I make sure that internal rotation doesn't gum up the works. Notice how I'm always rolling up my center line, even when my torso rotates. Drawing up that middle, reaching forward. Draw to reach. Draw to reach. Because this is a bigger movement in some ways, I'm very often going to slow down and see if I've lost something, and I have. My right rib is more engaged static than with the hip rotation. And so now as I roll through, I'm going to make sure that my right elbow doesn't flare up too much, which will cost me my rib. I'm going to keep it a little bit closer to my body so now I can maintain that side body feel as I roll through. And once I have that back, my belly rolls more easily, and the movement becomes far more complete. And again, every 10 or so rolls, I'm just going to slow down. Look for discrepancies. This time feels pretty good. And then accelerate back up to the pace. All right, playing with that. Making sure that roll travels all the way through all of your bellies, making sure the feet are an active part of the process. Very nice. One more minute on this side. Thirty more seconds on this side. As you begin to fatigue, don't go fast and go sloppy. Slow down and make it precise. I was clenching my neck back. I was losing a lot of extension to my back. So now as I raise the head neck up, that space comes back, my movement feels more free, and now I have the energy to go a little faster. So I'm no longer cramping down in a place I don't need to. Changing sides. I'm gonna watch all of you through this adjustment. Take your time. Start with that circle. Okay, about 20 more seconds on the side. Bringing the feet together. And let's take a good moment to relax. Get some water if you need it. We'll take about a minute-long break here so you have a chance to get some water. If you have any questions for me, let me know. It's looking really good for all of you. That pace looked really solid. Any questions about ball rolling or the various speeds of it? Is it all feeling pretty good?
Maybe just a comment as I continue to try to process how this works. The hands have always been difficult for me, and I felt like your comment that you're wrapping the space around your hands was helpful because I imagined wrapping a cloth around my hands. I felt like I almost understood something.
That's great. That's great. And part of what's wonderful about this is it doesn't matter what you imagine so long as you're imagining something. You know, so long as you're focusing on that space and making it more full. It could be the goofiest thing in the world. It could be the most serious thing. It really makes no difference so long as you have that focus in mind. I usually go goofy because it helps me remember it better. It was looking really good for all of you. It was a big step up. This is not an easy movement when done well. And it's a very, very helpful movement when you do it well. Like the uncle who taught me this appeared out of the brush in Tiantan, the temple where we practice, with a cigarette hanging from his mouth, and yelled at my teacher that if he taught me this and if I could do it, my Gong Fu would get good. If he didn't, my Gong Fu would never get good. And because he was a senior uncle, we then spent about half an hour every day doing what you all just did. And it was a wonderful experience. It was a wonderful growing experience for my practice. This kind of drill is just, you know, it yields phenomenal change. All right, about 30 more seconds and we'll get going. Give everyone a chance to come back to their screens. Sweet. And a day without stance and single leg. My God. Barely feels like quarantine.
It's okay. I'll catch up later.
Good man, Galen. Good man. I will too. The kids are now in bed. My training can begin. All right. Get my timer set up here. So we did a bunch of work in Taiji about an hour ago on the agonizing process that you have to go through to effectively do this. And it is quite a process. And as all of you know, Bagua has its own unique and fun way about going about how we raise the foot, and there are some parallels. The most distinct parallel is that much like in the Taiji step, when we raise our foot up, we're not raising from the knee, we're raising from the quad, right? We're raising from that inguinal space. And even though it's a similar technique, it's done in very different ways between the two styles. So for the Bagua method, what we're going to work with next is how we draw the leg up and bring that foot to parallel. Not so much the pull forward, we've all worked that a bunch, but how we get this foot to here in a meaningful way, in a way that effectively carries us from place to place, okay? So starting with your feet together, stepping out. And I want to be a pretty small step. There's about 4 finger lengths between my big toe, my back foot, and my heel of my front foot. And I want that small space so I can really focus on the postural elements above the feet, right? Again, I start with that foot grab. My weight is back. My belly draws to my spine, not tucking the tailbone, but enough that if I pull the weight forward or back, I can feel a belly involvement. So everyone give that a try. The belly's drawn in. If I grab from the quad and pull the weight forward, I feel the belly move. I grab the quad and pull the weight back. I feel the belly engage to stabilize. So in Bagua, every single step has an abdominal quality. And again, it has to, because without that, I'm leaving either my lower or upper body behind. And either way, it's not a full body movement at that point. So once more, shifting that weight back. So now here we are, back weighted. We're grabbing with that front foot. The weight is pulled up, and it's pulled up in such a way that I can feel a little bit of engagement, a little bit of pulling in that right hip. And I want to use that to trigger this next movement, okay? From that feeling of pull, I want to have that, has the belly, feel that belly engage, the big toe lifts in that back foot, and I want to feel like I'm pulling my heel out of the mud at like a 15, 20 degree angle, a very slight angle as I draw the feet together. The foot might slide a little, but it's not going to slip yet. And from that feeling of pull, I then let the foot draw up and touch, stepping through. Once again, it's about 4 finger widths or so apart, the front and the back foot. Belly's engaged, feet are grabbing. I pull the weight forward and back a couple of times, feeling the belly draw as I pull side to side, and the weight settles back, grabbing, pulling that weight forward, again, feeling that draw off that inguinal. And as I draw up, I'm trying once again to lift that very shallow angle. I can't quite get the foot up. And then from there, as the weight fills that right leg, the left leg lifts just a little, pulls up and in, steps through, grab, the weight pulls forward and back a couple of times. The weight settles back, front foot grabs and pulls, toes lift on that back foot. I feel the foot want to pull in. And the reason why it can't, because my weight is not yet completely over that left leg, as I continue to pull that weight in, the foot can begin to lift. Okay, so that's the basic feel of the pull. Now, the thing that's probably getting in all of your way is, how do I clear enough space in that hip to create that lift, right? And that's what we're going to talk about next. So we're going to start again. Yeah, sorry, it's getting late. Again, with the feet together. We're going to do our standard opening step from Taiji and then transfer that into the Bagua pull. And so with the feet to even, the toes are going to grab just a little. The belly draws in, head neck raises, chest concaves. Before I can step with my left foot, the weight needs to pour up, over, and then down into the rooted leg. As I push down, that press down frees the other foot to very easily rise up just a little and draw back. I return to neutral and relax. Then once again, both feet grab just a bit. The weight pours up and over into that right leg. With the belly engaged, chest concaved, head, neck lifting, that right foot presses, creating space for that left foot to lift, back down and relax. Just once more, we'll go back to walking the Bagua step. Feet grab, belly engage, chest concave, head, neck lifts, and the weight pours up and over into that right leg. As the weight pours down, it frees that left leg to lift just a bit. Now taking this back to the context of the Bagua stepping, and I'll start here so it's easier to see. With my left foot a little forward, my right foot a little back, I've done my forward back pull. I know my belly is engaged. I pull that weight forward. I lift that big toe. And now I'm not just going to go lump into this foot as I step. The weight is going to pour up and over into that leg, filling it so I can draw that foot up without resistance, slightly above the ground, step out, grab, and pull. Let's try that together. Both feet are engaged. We're drawing forward and back. My hands just up so I can see my waist. I draw back and settle on that back foot. I grab with the front foot, pull the belly forward. I lift the toes of my back foot, and I feel that weight pour up and over into my forward right leg. As the weight fills that leg, the back foot is freed to step up, step through, grab, and repeat, drawing that weight forward and back, pulling in each direction. I'm not just settling back, I'm pulling myself forward, pulling myself back, landing up on that back foot so I can start from a neutral place, grab, pull forward, raise the toes of the back foot. I feel that inguinal stretch. I pour my weight up and over so I can more seamlessly step up, out, grab, and repeat. I'll lead you all through one more of these, but all of you practice it for a couple moments. The weight draws forward and back. Belly's engaged. The weight settles back. I grab with the front toes, pull the weight up, raise my back toes, pour the weight up and over into my front leg. As the weight pours and pushes down, it frees the back foot to step and step through. All right? Everyone give that a try at your own pace. All of you. Excellent. We've got about 4 minutes left. Okay. So before we go into a bit more practice with this, I just want to make sure I'm answering all questions. Does anyone have any questions about this addition to the stepping?
So with the step, you talk about going to the big toe and then grabbing the ground. Mm-hmm. So you're still doing that kind of thing. That's kind of involved in this also.
Right. All the old principles are still there. There's still a feeling of that space being pressed between the legs as they arc out just a little bit. All those principles are still active. I've just been noticing a little bit of difficulty in that first little bit of raising the foot out for a lot of people. And I've spent the last little few days trying to figure out exactly how to break that down. And if this is working, that's great. And this is consistent with the Tai Chi principles. It's consistent with how Zhang walks and teaches, and you're all moving really well with it. And so nothing's omitted. It's just another way to think about that engagement. Yeah, very good. Any other questions? Awesome. So for the last, how many minutes do we have left? Cool, 3 minutes. So now we're going to bring this, if we can, into an arc. If a straight line is still enough of a challenge for you, keep working on that. If you want to start moving in towards a circle, we're going to play with that now. And so beginning with that nice small distance between the feet, running through our postural elements again, because it's always going to remind our bodies of that, if our minds know it. There's the foot grab, belly draw, chest concave, head, neck lift. We are pull forward and back. And now with the weight back, grabbing with those front toes. As Robert was saying, if you want to add more on, and we're still in the medial aspect of the foot, all those old principles are still there. If this new movement's enough, keep playing with this alone. There's the grab and pull. The pouring of the weight up and over as the big toe lifts in the back foot. From that pour and press, the foot comes up and touches. And then from that touch, arcs away and begins to rotate around the circle. And now we have our grab. pull forward and back just once. You can feel that forward-back transition. Make sure the belly is still along for the ride. If you lose the belly, you can't pour the weight, right? It's a prereq for that really smooth weight transfer. With that weight back, grabbing with the front toes, pull the weight up. The weight pours up and over as the big toe lifts in the back foot, pushing into the ground as that back foot pulls up, touching, and then arcing to our circle. Make sure the belly is engaged as we pull the weight forward and back. And again, because we're arcing our circle, there's a little bit of hip shift with this because of the nature of the movement. From that back weightedness, grab with that front foot, pull the weight up, big toe lifts in the back foot as the weight pours up and over. Feel that press as we pull that foot up and in, stepping out, grab and pull. Again, forward and back, making sure the belly is still there. The back weightedness, grab with the toes, draw up, raising the big toe, the back foot as the weight pours up and over and down. And for that press down, the feet step up, arcing in yet again, pulling the weight up. And running through a couple more of these at your own pace. We've covered a bunch in our classes, and there are still more we're going to add as we keep on playing through. It's really hard to do any of them in combination unless they're all very, very well practiced. Much like the ball rolling, right? If all of this isn't clean static, you really can't add much more to it and gain, right? It becomes just a lot of noise. The same thing for the stepping. And so as all of you are practicing, especially if there are elements that are difficult for you, particularly difficult, I would recommend just negating other things and working just on that for days to weeks. Make that how you do your circle walking until, much like the ball rolling, the positioning has been done so much that it's just tedious and boring, to keep doing it that way. And then we add in the new stuff, it'll stick to it, and you'll build a bigger and bigger and more complete picture. It really is necessary to break into the minutiae of detail, to focus on exactly what part of your belly is moving, what makes it move differently. When you raise your foot, how does it feel when you raise it a little bit versus raise it a lot? What different parts of the body are engaged, understanding that, and then making it automatic from a place of understanding. And if you go through that, just long process earlier on in your training, the entire rest of your career will have that benefit. It's very much worth the time. Any questions? You all did great today. Any questions?